back, everyone, once again to another Trotec Laser Live here on a Friday with Laser Dave. How are you, sir?
Good. How you doing, Don? Pleasure to be
Really
back.
good. Yeah, pleasure to have you. Want to take a quick moment here to say thank you again to everybody who's joining us live. If you're watching us later on YouTube, also very much appreciated as always. If you have any comments while you're here watching live, we hope you'll drop them in the chat. I gestured in this direction because it's off in this direction for me, but I think it's probably down there. Anyways, this is neither here nor there. Very happy to have you all with us. And if you have any questions today as regards specifically Ruby, but also Trotec in general, we will do our best to grab as many as we can. But so grateful to have you all joining us. Dave, I think we have a little bit of some things we want to go through here. We have kind of an outline put together, but exciting news, 2.11 just dropped.
Yes, for sure. 2.11. It's got all those features we talked in last month's stream that finally dropped. So we have some of these new capabilities and new exciting features built into the Ruby that a lot of which I've been waiting a whole long time for. So excited to show some of them off. I forget the total number. It was like 100 or so new features. It's crazy, but there are some major features, minors, bug fixes, a little bit of everything. So we'll do our best to go through some of them, and then we're going to be doing this monthly, so we can keep kind of talking through some of these details as you guys have questions or start using them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's I'm really glad you mentioned that. That's a big one to mention right off the top. Obviously with 2.11, as with every Ruby release, there's always going to be some things that are still kind of work in development, some stuff that is going to continue to get better over the next few weeks. So, and obviously, like you said, Sue, some bug fixes that are coming from stuff that's existed since, a previous version. So we really want to make this monthly, not only so we can cover off what those new improvements, those new exciting things are, but then also so that you guys have a chance to come in and ask us that burning Ruby question that's been it's been occupying your minds the last little while.
One thing I like about this version too is it at this point there are no features in the old job control that I have found that aren't exceeded by Ruby now, where there was a few of those obscure little features that people or hold-offs from the job control because job control frankly did it better. But now I don't know any feature. I mean, everything from the rubber stamp feature to the seals features all built into Ruby now. It's faster, it's easier, it's better, and it is. There's really no advantage anymore to staying on job control.
Yes, I totally agree. And also, I mean, you guys have probably seen the emails, but with job control coming to its end of life in October, we really want to encourage you. This might be the time to make that jump, to head over to Ruby, to be brave. I promise you, if you're familiar with job control, you're going to find Ruby very, very comfortable. And if you have any questions, you know exactly where to come to get them answered. We're really here to help. Or, I hope you'll reach out to your local Trotec and speak with our TS teams and your sales guys. They are definitely there to help you, and they're very, very knowledgeable as a rule. I was going to mention too, just to make sure it's very, very clear, as we mentioned in the beginning, but I know people are still coming in. Dave and I are going to be talking through some features in 2.11 that we're really excited about, with some more stuff to come next month. Obviously, we wanted to set aside a lot of time for your questions. But if you have questions that are not necessarily 2.11 dependent, just any Ruby question, any Trotec question, feel free to toss it in the chat, and we will do our best to get to as many of those as we possibly can. So with that said, do we want to maybe, I mean, it's been about 5 minutes, Dave. Do we want to maybe bring in your screen here and we can talk about some...
Let's showcase some of the new Ruby features. The 2.11 features are vast, like we said, and so we're only going to be able to touch on some of the highlighted ones. And of course, if you folks out there have any questions, feel free to ping off. Now is your opportunity to put it in front of us. So if I've done it, if I have an answer for you, I can do it, or I will cover it. But I mean, general layout is the same, just going to be new features and stuff like that built into the software. So within the Rubies, a couple new features that are right off the bat that I want to showcase. There's a little booklet up here in the corner here. This is going to immediately tell you what is new. So if we don't cover it today, or if you really want to know what's new, go ahead and click this button right here. And what this, if I'd actually click it, it's going to take you directly into the Ruby help menu. And if you scroll towards the bottom, you're going to see the release notes. And the release notes are going to showcase all the latest features for the previous versions as well as the latest one. And when you click on that, so if I were to click here, it's going to go through and show all the new features. And so not only is it going to show it, it's going to give you a quick little video synopsis that showcases what it's for. We now have a right-click menu. We can now do multiple line text group and ungroup designs, edit corners individually. So if you want radiuses on the corners, you can round them individually. We now have a text to path, fit text to path. So if you want to put an object around a circle or a cylinder or any type of shape, we now have the ability to do that within the Ruby. So you're not going back and forth to your Illustrator or CorelDRAW or Lightburn to formulate these features.
Yes.
And as you scroll down, a new links feature. We've always had links within the rubber stamps, but the links feature now is available for all materials. So if you ever wanted that piece of plywood that you wanted to be able to cut all the parts out, but you didn't want parts to fall out as you pulled it out. You wanted to be able to pull it out and then break those little links out. You can now turn them on. Tells you how to do that right here. Pretty simple. In the parameter setting, you just click on generate links, and then it'll do that on the cut setting.
I was going to say, I feel like for those watching in chat, you can really tell which of the features Dave is most excited about by how animated he gets. Finally, it's this.
Yeah.
I will say there's one that we talked about last month. Without wanting to give away too many things here, definitely use this menu 100%. There's one that we talked about specifically last month that I was hoping we might be able to demo here, Dave, and that's the improvements to the tracing features.
Yes, for sure. I'm not going to go through all these, but as you can see, another huge one here, we can now export to SVG. That's one, when you have that design, you've created it in Ruby and you're like, oh, I need to be able to take this to my print software, or I need to be able to run it somewhere else. You can now export a vector format of what you're working on back out, open it in Lightburn, CorelDRAW, Illustrator, whatever software you're using. SVG is probably the most generic vector format out there. So utilize this page, go through each one of these and see all the new features. Watch the little 10-20 second video. It's going to give you an understanding of it. We're not going to go through all of them. Like I said, there's a whole lot of them, but it's the quickest and easiest way to identify what's new just by clicking the little booklet here. There's also a new manual in there that's going to go through and actually explain every new feature. There's actually a digital full-on manual within the Ruby now. So when you have those nuanced details, you can access it again from this same location.
Very cool.
So the trace program, I mean, we've always liked the trace, and in my opinion, the trace is frankly outstanding when it comes to Ruby. So you now have the ability to very quickly trace, as we always have, but it's actually vastly improved as of this latest version. So if I were to take a design, so let's open up some of my designs here. Let's find one that is just here's one right here, which is just it's a non-vector. So this is a simple little logo. Say I needed to be able to put this on, but I needed to cut it out. So, I mean, if you can see it here, it is not a vector format. It is a PDF. So if I wanted to trace that, the trace commands are now right on the menu here. So you can identify exactly what each one of the features are. You can crop it. You can adjust the brightness and contrast. There's a new feature for adjusting the aspects of a photo. Or
that's so nice. I feel like, just to really quickly pause on that, the updates to I don't know if we'll get a chance to talk about it today, but things like the sharp mask and the updates to photos.
Here's the sharp masking filter now. Yeah, as I was just going to show that. Yeah, so and instead of just brightness and contrast, we can now do unsharp masking, and so it's going to give you more threshold control over imagery. Now, this image don't really need it, but I just wanted to show that. Now, the trace feature, in the past, you'd click it up in the upper menu. Now it's on the actual graphic, but when you click it, you'll notice a pop-up menu now. So we now have control over a preview, what it's going to look like before we actually trace it. So we don't have to trace it anymore. So you can control how much smoothing level, the cluster size, and zoom in and out and actually control that trace if I just want inside, outside. And then so when I actually run a trace on it, I can simulate what it's going to look like. Here's a neat one, say what it's going to look like if I fill it. So if I were to fill that trace, and now I know that I've got a a nice consistent fill. And so when you apply that trace, I now have a very, very smooth trace. And then combine that with the offset feature. This is one of my favorite features. And so say if I wanted to cut that out, I don't want to cut this image out as a single or three different pieces.
Three separate pieces.
Yeah. And so I'm just going to click this one right here, the offset, and you can identify the distance. But when I click the offset, it's going to give me an offset. And I can click it several times and it's immediately going to weld it together. So within seconds, and I can keep clicking it and make it bigger and bigger, or I can hit this one here and it's going to shrink it down until I can get the effect. So I've literally taken an image that I may have taken from my phone camera, dropped into Ruby, ran an outline trace on it, and then created an outline cut path on it, and then offset that cut path to make an engraved sticker-like effect. So it's a great new feature. This used to take forever within CorelDRAW or your drawing programs to make those. You had to do the outline, you had to do the trace, then you had to do an offset or a contour offset, and then you had to go in and clean up the nodes. And then, it was a multi-step process to get to this same system. And then when the vectors hit together, you had to weld them together. They didn't auto merge a lot of the times on some softwares where others did, but it was a far more tedious process. And now it's been extremely streamlined.
Yeah, this is something where you were telling me that even in your utilization of this, sometimes what you've done as a means to make some of those core tracing features in other softwares better is to literally just do the trace in Ruby, export it as an SVG, as you were talking about, and then bring that SVG back into whatever design software you happen to be using.
Yeah, here's the SVG right here. So when you click that, and immediately it's going to say save change, or you want to save it first. And then when you hit the SGV or SVG, if I can speak here, it immediately just goes into your download folder. And you then have access to that within any graphic software that supports an SVG. And I don't know any graphic software that doesn't support SVG.
Me neither. I could definitely see some uses for this, particularly, I mean, I have a bit of a background in graphic design, not a huge amount, but, I can't tell you the number of times that I would receive a logo from a customer and it's typically raster. It's typically perhaps not the best quality. It's a bit of a, mixed bag. Sometimes you get something that was sent by somebody who doesn't have the original files or whatever it might be, right? So what I love about a really robust trace feature is it allows you to kind of take, like you said, this kind of a very basic PDF raster image and turn it into a really high quality piece of artwork that you can then use for whatever you need to use it for, right?
Yeah, for sure. So intricate ones like this, I can very quickly trace, hit apply, and then do an offset the same way. Boom.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it immediately links it together, and within seconds, you blink, and I've now got an outline trace and an offset.
Yeah, it's wild. It's like you said, it really does give kind of a sticker effect.
Yeah.
I'm curious, am I right in saying, too, it looks like, I haven't had a ton of time to get to play with this yet, but it looks like there's not a huge amount of surplus nodes too, which is something that I always struggle with. For me, it's usually the Illustrator Live trace. And typically, I mean, it obviously depends on the complexity of the image, but like you end up with a ton of nodes everywhere.
Yeah. And the increased nodes, if anybody's run into that problem, when you use some brands of trace out there, if you have too many nodes, it can really slow things down. Every node is a course correction, and the laser has to see that as a course correction. It'll actually cause systems to fail because there's so many course corrections. Sometimes the software just can't handle it because instead of 100 or so, there's 10,000. And that can really interfere with softwares. And so you do need to run node reductions and problems if you run into those problems where you do a trace and then you go to cut it and it stalls your laser simply because you have far too much data on there, too many course corrections, and that are completely unnecessary.
Yes, exactly. Cool. That's fantastic. Thank you, Dave. So that's kind of the trace feature. Really quickly, I wanted to pop over here and spend a little bit of time as well, just to very quickly talk about profiles. And this will be kind of one of the last really big things before we hop into questions here. So if you guys are submitting your questions, don't worry. I'm marking them all down. I'm setting them all aside. We're definitely coming back around to them. I just want to let them build up a little bit. Please, Dave, tell us a little about profiles. We've talked a little bit about this, but we haven't properly dove into it, I don't think.
Yeah, profiles is a great feature, and they're going to show on the main screen here. The ones that you have preset are right here. I can drag a file from another screen or another folder and drag it directly in there from like a from your another computer screen, or I can literally take a design that I have in here and drag it into the profile, and it immediately skips the steps. It's like a VIP pass for your material settings or for your project, and so in essence, it skips the line. It goes from a creation on your screen or in a design folder to basically it's like sending a file to the printer. It's literally ready to print the second you put it on, and that is the advantage of a profile. To set up a profile, you'll hit the downdraft menu, click on profiles, and it's going to go into it, and we can identify a lot of different things here. What material we're going to run, if there's any specific tags. So I can say, I want woods, or, these are searchable objects. If I'm going to turn the rotary on, so if you're doing tumblers or something all the time and you want the same orientation and graphic on there, you can turn the tumbler on, put in your diameter, your scale factors, if you want to scale the graphic up and down automatically. So it automatically scales that graphic to fit the tumbler in this case. I'm not going to do the rotary in this case, but we can also identify where the start position is. So I need my in this case, if I wanted to cut, say, sheets, I could say I want to start at point 1 to point 1. I don't want it to be right up against that corner, so I will identify a start position. We can, each time I do a profile, do I want it to save as a separate job? So if I ever need to go back to it, I can now have it saved, and it's in my archives, and I have access to it. Or I want to save it as a design. So you can identify that and say, I want to save this as a job. Is there an anchor point? Anchor point is the orientation location where you want that to go at every time. So I want it to start at 2 inches and 2 inches, X versus Y all the time, because I have a fixture there. So you identify where that fixture's upper left-hand corner would be, and that's where it'll anchor to, and your job will always snap to that. So any job you drag into profiles, it gives you that capability. If you wanted to do inner geometries first, overlapping cut lines. So say you do you're cutting products, but you don't want that line to cut twice. So if you've got, say, a piece of material that's going to be cut out, you don't want to cut that overlapping line, but you want to save on space. And so I would turn lines on, and it skips any overlapping cut lines. Great feature there. You can import, if you're importing a PDF, do you want it to do the first page, or do you want it to do a single design, or everything within the page? And so it allows you to kind of identify any one of the objects. And then here's a new one, design grid. This is a new one that's just been added. So maybe I don't want to run one. I want to run a whole sheet every single time. So I'm going to indicate how many columns I want, how many rows, if there's an offset between them. If I'm doing rubber stamps or seals, do I want it to automatically generate? So I can drag a graphic in, immediately have it convert it to a rubber stamp, add the tabs, the seals, and so when I turn on stamp settings, it's immediately going to give me another menu here to be able to put in what shoulder I want, the slope offset, the thresholds, the distance, the cut lines, the tabs, so that they don't fall out after then. And so once I'm done, I can name that profile, and I've already got one named here, so I'll show it here. I'm not going to save this one, so I've got one called industrial tag. So if I'm doing industrial anodized tags all the time, and I need to do the entire rows of them, I could just grab my industrial tag either from here, and I could then open it, and then I can modify it. I could create the job. I could then come in here and I could array that out to however many I want. And then I can select the material, and then I can push it to laser. That's a lot of process steps. Or now I can say I've got all that set up in a profile. So I'm going to take my industrial tag here, and I'm just going to drag it into that profile. And now if I go to my produce screen, guess what? It's done. I'm literally done. And so any file that I drop into that one, it's going to give me the ability to automatically be arrayed, set up for a sheet size of material. These are all butted up against each other, specifically anodized tags. If you're cutting it out, I've got a mark setting on here. If you've got a cut setting, I've skipped overlapping cut lines if it's going to be a cut line, and you're ready to go. If I wanted to do a tumbler, same thing. I can drag it into the tumbler. It automatically rotates it. It knows the diameter. And so it skips the line. It skips the steps. And so it makes it Easy. And if you don't like something, you can just click on the profile and make adjustments to it. So I can adjust the start position, my orientation. I like, oh, I want to save them from now on, make a change to that. And then you can save it as a new profile, or you can save the existing one. Anytime you make a change, it gives you that ability. So that's what profiles are. And then combining this with the API capability, so you're running on Etsy or you're running on an online Shopify account. Yeah, and now you can also set up manage mappings. And so I can take these profiles, and then you need to install what's called Job Manager. And then you can map a folder to, say, a cloud server. Something like Dropbox or Google Drive or something like that. Mm-hmm. So you can literally set it up to where your software automatically is generated online from your customers, which then drops it as a PDF into a folder automatically. And we have API setups here. And so right on the drop-down menu right here now, we have a API button. And right here, when you click on that, it gives the command for what operation you want. So you talk to your web designer and say, hey, I have my Shopify, the customer's designing it, it's going to be an output, and I need to be able to run these commands. And for those of you who don't web design, you don't need to worry about it. All you need to do is know that we have the code ready to go for you right here that bridge the gap between your online presence and your laser Ruby software. So in essence, you come in the morning, your website has literally sent files to your Ruby queue, and you wake up in the morning and you've got, oh, I got a job here ready to go that was sent in from my website. Already knows the material, everything. You just push start.
Exactly. I mean, I think a quick summation of all the stuff that you showed in that profile is it's all the standard design decisions that you would be making as you put a job together, whatever it might be. It's just that in this case, you know that you're doing it frequently enough that you're going to just make that a preset, essentially, right? I know, like you said, I'm doing tags every single day, and I set them up the same way every single day. So I'm just going to set a preset, like you said, a shortcut that has all of the tag information that I don't, differ from every single day, and I can just drag and drop it right into the shortcut, and it goes right to the front of the line.
One other thing I want to showcase is the ability to change the power settings after it's now been sent. In the past, you couldn't do that. So if I decide I didn't get enough power settings and I don't remove this when it's done and I'm rerunning it several times and I found that it's a little light, I can adjust my power settings here and apply it. And now it's changed it without going back through that process now. That's a new feature as well.
Love it. So one thing too, if we start to get some interest in the API side, I think Dave and I are pushing hard to have some of our API experts come on and do a stream with us and kind of walk you guys through a little bit of what the API is capable of. Again, no worries, but we're not going to sit here and teach you code for 45 minutes. But at the same time, being able to give you a sense of what's possible just to get you over that first hump and get you excited about the API, I think is something that's important to both Dave and I. Just about at the halfway mark, quick fire round. I got 3 here that I've set aside that I'd love if you could show us, Dave, really, really fast. Love to show how the multi-line text is working. I'd love to show the rounded corners like you were talking about earlier, and then the text to path like you were talking about earlier, because they were both things that major. I think the word you might have used is finally when you're showing the updates, and I'm right there with you, man. I'm 100% in agreement.
Yeah, for sure.
Multi-line text.
Yeah, these are just give us. Let's go to a new page here. We'll only use this a few times, but in essence, it's going to give us the ability to add text, and we can come in here and start typing, and you can now hit enter and then do your multiple line.
It seems like a small thing, but if you're doing name tags, if you're doing industrial tags, that sort of thing, this can be a really nice thing to have.
Yeah. So simple little things. These things that we've taken for granted on other software, the ability to just automatically center and position and orient our text onto it, change the color. It's more like most graphic design softwares, which make it much easier to do that. In the past, you had to do a line of text, you had to hit enter, and then you could bring it in, and then you had to do another one. So it's just a matter of just hitting enter, just like any other graphic software. Something we have strived to add to this in a long time. Seems so simple, but it's intuitive and easy to use now.
Agreed. So rounded corners.
So rounded corners. So the other nice thing about the new version of the Ruby is it has a right mouse button click menu finally. So I can right click on something and actually see delete objects, undo, toggle help, and any of the objects that I click on when I right click, it's going to give me another menu. So there's group and ungroups and stuff like that, things that you're comfortable using on most graphic software. So the right click menu is now available as well. So rounded corners is, so when you click on an actual object itself, oh, that's the text to path. And so I can actually add text to the path now built into it. So there's a little button right here. Let's hit that one first since I accidentally clicked on it. So if I wanted to put text on that path, let's switch to a circle. It's a little more common. And then you can adjust that. You can adjust that here by hitting the little the little edit button right here. Oh, that's the edit for the. Sorry, I haven't used this very often yet. I just only used it once or twice here.
Not
I'm
at
trying to
all.
remember how
It's a brand new version.
Let's edit to text. I did it once, and I'm like, okay, I need to remember how to do this. I know. I'm just trying to remember how to.
I consider it this way. It's if our goal here, Dave, more than anything, is to encourage you to go out and test it yourselves.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to remember how to.
Rest assured that Dave and I, after this webinar, will be debriefing and playing along with the.
Here it is. So up here, you can actually identify spacing, word count, position, rotation. So you can see here if I want it below the line. So in essence, when you click on it, it gives you the ability to kind of play around with that and find that curve, that effect, and then you can then remove the path or it reverts back. But if you hit apply, then it would keep it that way. So that is the new text to path feature and multi-line text. Rounded corners, same thing. We now, well, that's going to that same thing. So when you click on it, you can click this little edit button right here, and it's now going to where you can hit edit path. Here it is. Reset variables. Again, I've done this once.
No, it's all right. If anything, it would be a great chance for us to show how going up to the book and checking the 10-second video would be
right.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's something that's funny. That's what I've done. Yeah, it's like, okay, how did I do this again? Right here. So there's the multi-line text, the little video that showcases it here. Right mouse button click menu that I was talking about, so you can right click and then group it together. Here it is. So you identify the corners by clicking and then dragging, and then you can click around. I got it. Okay. Like I said, I've done it once. And then the fit text to path, you click the menu, which I did find. Yeah. So this is a little menu I literally have to go to right now because I haven't had a lot of time playing with it yet.
No, and realistically, we want you guys to know that, I mean, this only came out a few days ago, so we're trying to highlight some of the stuff we're excited about. But our hope is that if you guys send us some stuff, if there are certain things that you want to see, by all means, we want to hear about it. So to kick off kind of our question period, I have a question for you that's a little bit of a tricky one. And then I'm going to get into some of these great questions we're getting from the chat. For anybody who's joining late, again, this is a Ruby themed stream. But by no means do your questions have to be about 2.11 or a particular version of Ruby at all. If it's a Trotec question, we're happy to try and answer if we can. Dave, you and I had a conversation yesterday where we were talking about where Ruby has come to, and you mentioned earlier in the stream about how you feel like there's not a single feature in job control that isn't now kind of either equaled or superseded by Ruby. And I asked you, hey, do you think at this point, if you were buying a Trotec laser, should you also buy a subscription for another piece of creative software? And I thought your answer was really, really good and nuanced. And so I'm curious to kind of ask you that again here live on the stream.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that is a great question. And it is entirely, Ruby is now powerful enough to handle, I would say, 50 to 60% of all needs out there. So, I mean, if you're a company that is literally running several different products all the time and you need to just do that, say you're putting a graphic onto a component, you would not need anything else. Complex graphics and design, say you're an award manufacturer and creating, you're still going to find more powerful capabilities within Adobe Illustrator, Corel Draw, some of the more advanced softwares that's been out a lot longer. So it really depends on your scenario. Ruby is now powerful enough to where you can design from scratch, you can bring graphics in, you can export them back out. And so it's going to feel the need for, I would say, about half the folks out there that have laser systems, because they're literally running a product. They're putting graphics on a cutting board. They're running imagery on footballs or sports balls, which is a popular one lately. There is no need for paying for an additional license, because you can drop a logo, a graphic, you can trace it, you can position it, profiles, or for the folks out there that have like an online creation using your Shopify account, and you're using what is it, Zuzeki, or I can't remember the name of the word that actually generates it. Remember what it was called, Don?
I will look it up.
Ziki, yeah, it's literally it's a software that actually like scales it and actually shows you what it's going to look like on a material, and then generates that graphic and then exports it out, and then immediately then you work with profiles and it drops it into a folder for you, which then in turn runs directly into Ruby. No point in actually having another graphic software, because everything is taken care of. But for you folks that are creating specific designs and really, really advanced designs and stuff like that, use the advanced softwares out there as well. But even in addition to that, you find that you're not having to go back and forth as often. If I need to do a quick adjustment, change or delete or modification to it, I don't have to go back to my design software, make the change, save that change, and then resend it through a spooler in the old ways, and then send that to the laser. And it ate up so much time. So lots of those features are no longer needed.
Typos are the one I always think of. Typos are the one that drive me crazy. I put together a whole design in Adobe, put it on a USB key, bring it to the laser, put it in, and realize, I flubbed some word, and then oh, totally, absolutely.
Yeah, it just speeds things up, because the lasers may be fast these days. Trotec makes amazingly fast lasers, but if you're tinkering around with your graphic software for hours on throughout the day, that's wasted time. The laser could be making you money.
Totally. So on a similar note, I'm going to start to grab some of the questions from chat here. And again, any question Trotec related or Ruby related, we're happy to have it. I'm going to grab a recent one here from Trophy Factory, asking about, what about a simple repeat cut line that was in JC? Where is that in Ruby? Or I'm going to expand that. What's the easiest way to do a repeat cut line in Ruby if you've already got a job kind of up and running?
Yeah, absolutely. That has to do with what you identify as the pass on the material setting. So if I have a file that is literally going to be cut out, so say I pull this design and I want to cut it twice. So that's just typically done within the parameter itself. And this has always been around in Ruby. So I would just come into the parameter, click on that color, and then you can identify how many times that you want that material to, that color to cut. And so I can say I want it to do 2 passes, 3 passes, 5 passes. So identifying how many passes each one. The thing too on Ruby, you can also do overlapping passes with engraving. So if you want to do more than one pass on engraving, you can identify that as well. Job Control had that as well. But another nice thing is you can do engrave covered layers. So you say you've got a blue setting and a red setting that's engraving. I can have it engrave one parameter setting on top of another color setting, should I want, and have that ability to do both colors. And Ruby Job Control couldn't do that at all. So not only multiple passes within a color, your choice, but you can also do that with engraving. And that's always been around. Both of these features have been in Ruby the whole time.
Gotcha. Quick question for you then, as regards, you were showing us in the produce screen, you were showing us the ability to modify some of the settings in the job. Are we able to turn on and off certain steps there, or no? That we would have to go back to the actual material setting.
You
Gotcha.
can't go in and delete that setting out. That is a nice feature. That would be a nice feature. Say you want to engrave it again, but you don't want to cut it again, to be able to skip one or the other on here. So if any of
Uncheck
the
the,
software
yeah.
guys are talking to us, that'd be a great feature. It's like, yeah, it engraved, but I need to engrave it again before I cut it. So I paused it, but I don't want to cut it again, but I want to engrave it again, but I don't want to go resend it. So being able
Yep.
to skip one of those colors after the fact would be a useful feature.
I'm writing an email as we speak. Dear software guys at software. Um, Quick question here from Fallcraft. So that they're doing trolleys and that the black underlayer has a slight gray haze. Anything I can do to get it more black? I presume, now this is a presumption, Fallcraft, you can correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but I presume that is probably like a white or a lighter layer, obviously on top of the black underlayer. But if you're getting gray, then I presume it's probably a white-black would be my
Yeah,
guess.
black surface, white core. Yeah, and that is a very
Or vice
common
versa.
issue within lasers. Yeah, and it doesn't matter, or if it is a white surface with a black core and it's coming out kind of grayish. There's a couple different things depending on what you want. One, use your wide mouth cone. That's going to make a big difference. Wide mouth cone does not allow as much air to be blasted down onto your engraving process, and which causes a lot of residue to form. Now, if it is more of a grayish effect on a black, this has to do with the heat distortion. When you engrave black, sometimes it doesn't engrave as black as you want. And in those cases, that's a tricky thing. One, you can take the laser slightly out of focus, which spreads the heat out and it gives you more of a glaze effect with the wide mouth cone, and you're going to get a much blacker black. Another little trick that I've showed on one of my laser hacks is when you have a little bit of a grayish effect on the black ones, take and put an oil on it, like a coconut oil. Works really well because it kind of brings that out really, and it kind of masks the smell too. So that's a great way to do that. And then lastly, if it is more of a haze or a residue that's forming on there and you can't really wipe it off, you can't use alcohol on it, then the heptane or hexanes, it's another laser hack I did, will take any residue outside of the laserable plastic. It's petroleum based, so it's not going to cause crazing or cracking. And you can take a look at Laser Dave's laser hacks on plastics and you'll see both of those hacks, the oil trick as well as the hexanes trick for cleaning up the residue. But make sure you use the wide mouth cone, and then also go out of focus a little bit if you want more of a glazing effect or a darker effect on the dark ones. But even on the light materials where there's a light core, that is a benefit. Unless your detail is very high, then you want to maintain focus. But usually you don't run into this problem because small text, you wouldn't see that background anyway.
Right. One thing I would add, so I know we mention it every week, but also as a quick, aside, if you haven't watched Laser Dave's Laser Hacks on the YouTube channel, please do check those out. I can vouch for the coconut oil one. It is a lifesaver, especially for the smell. Number two, I was always taught, so either the wide mouth cone, or if you're doing engraving of trolleys, I've even done it with no air assist on for the engraving aspect of it. And that can be a nice, depending on the amount of text, like the volume that you're engraving, that can be a nice, go between. It's something that I might try. The last thing also, you mentioned about how cutting makes it sticky. I was always taught, and I'm curious for your feedback on this, Dave, that when you're cutting lamicoids, you want just enough power that essentially they're not cut entirely through. They're cut 98% of the way through, and you can still take that sheet out and then break them, snap them apart.
Yeah, for sure. That's ideal if you can find that sweet spot, for sure.
Yes.
But because there's a little bit of ABS material, a butylstyrene within the acrylic aspect, it creates a slightly sticky edge. This will go away after about 24 hours. Because it's the polymer chains being broken apart by heat from the thermal conductivity of the laser. But that is a common effect. Note that it will go away. The hexane material rubbing on the edge will take that away. Again, you don't want to use any alcohol in these materials. It will cause crazing and cracking because the primary component is acrylic, and acrylic and alcohol are no. So you keep those apart. So, but hexanes will take that away. Don's trick will reduce it, but you're still going to get a little bit of a sticky edge. It has to do with the type of material. That's what makes it flexible and not brittle. So they have to put a little of this compound in there. Otherwise, acrylic would be very brittle at those thicknesses. So that it's a combination polymer in order to kind of give you the best of all worlds.
And I'm glad you mentioned that too, just because if you get a sticky edge, I think it's very clear to point out that you're not doing anything wrong. That is just part of the nature of the material. It's just one thing that's gonna happen, certainly. Question here again from Fallcraft, really quick, but I do quite like this question. Could they potentially add an option to maintain the original trace lines when doing the offset? Certainly something I think we can pass along. As far as I'm aware, Dave, no way to do that at the moment.
Well, it does save the it saves whatever the number you put in here. So in the offset, I can identify that I want a 1 inch offset on every time. And so when I bring in a graphic that has that, so before, get rid of that one, and then now when I select that, do a quick trace.
Man, that's fast.
And then
too.
do my offset. As soon as I click that button once, oh, it did not save that. Oh, it maxes out. Okay, so I can't do a full 1 inch. But yeah, whatever that offset is now set up on there so that it's going to stay that. So if I got a 0.2 inch offset, it's always going to be a 0.2 offset. But yeah, it's not going to auto do that. But that is a good idea, to where we could have like preset defaults, if you will, profile defaults for your preferences.
Well, quick question for you, and this could be dumb, but if you step back by one, like if you undo one so it's still very tight to the edge of the raster, if you go back on one step, yeah. Now you see how it's set that vector line in your layer tab over there. Could you just copy that layer and then make a second one that's a different color?
So like I guess, yeah. I mean,
if you copy that vector line.
Yeah, we can copy it. So I can hit Control CV. I like that. It's and snap it to that, and then do an offset of that one. Now I have one of each, and then I can change the color.
Exactly.
Now I have a dual layer cut, especially if I'm going to do something like twill or something like that, or I would want an inside cut and then an outside cut at different parameters.
Or it's even just if in the future you want different layers of offset, you could try, you could uncheck one, go back and do. I'm here for something. Dave is the expert, but I justified my being here. I'm so glad. Okay, let me see what other quick questions we've got going on here. Kind of a tricky one here for you, Dave, from Rick Island Shooter, who says that they seem to be having a problem, when importing PDF files. They don't get an error with any of their information explaining what the issue is. And then when they do have a successful import, they'll have font issues or where fonts aren't being recognized. Anything that you've come across like that before when doing file imports? I know certainly font issues is something I have run into from time to time myself.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this has been a common problem. The main issue is, in most cases, you see Ruby on your screen, so you assume this is your computer. This is not your computer. If you're running a run on Ruby laser machine, it's a totally different computer. And if that computer don't have your fonts, then it can cause problems. We've made a lot of strides to improve upon this. And when it comes to doing PDF imports, there's literally different in the settings profile here. There are different capabilities to make adjustments to that. I'm trying to remember when they moved it here. So, not user management. Sorry, under your settings. Here we go. So within your settings here, we have a PDF import mode under import. And so we can actually identify some of the details of a PDX import. But the other thing is when you're generating your PDF, when you're generating it, and you're saving that PDF, there's a little button when you're generating a PDF, especially for most drawing programs, it'll say embed fonts. And if those fonts are embedded into that PDF, we now can support most embedded fonts. And so when it comes over, those fonts are going to be there. You can also, when you export to a PDF, convert those fonts to curves on most PDF generators. That's not as ideal because you can't edit them in Ruby later. But if you want to embed them so that those fonts are brought over with it. And then if you still are just having problems, now sometimes the generation, how it's generated, where it's generated can be a problem. You also want to identify, is it the single design? Is it multiple designs? Or are you going to do just the first page? on the import, what the page limit is. So if you're bringing in a manual, you don't want a 30-page manual. I just want page 1 of that manual because it has the logo on it. But I also don't want to drop it into another drawing program, save it, and then have to bring it out and then resave it. So this will speed things up a little bit. So there are some PDF controls within the settings, but if you're still having problems with fonts, you can, of course, always still add the fonts directly into Ruby. So if you do have problem where the fonts just don't come in, save that font from your computer. Again, it's just because you're on the screen of it, you're actually talking to another computer built inside the laser machine. Mm-hmm. So what you can do is just click on fonts here. And when you click on fonts, you can literally just take and copy and paste or import by hitting the import button here and drag it, or just drag those fonts into this screen. So if you take all the fonts that you have, or the top 10 fonts that you have, and drag them in here, when they're brought in and they can't find, because fonts are weird. Some of them work, some don't. I've had problems. I have the same problem with Illustrator and CorelDRAW. Sometimes they'll come in just fine. Sometimes they're proprietary fonts, and so it doesn't seem to communicate properly. So in those cases, put them into Ruby. So this way those fonts are actually located on that computer system. And then when it sees them, it's not going to give you those problems.
This is one where, because I'm in the part of French Canada, this has been a big one for me, where I've brought in fonts that have to have special accents and special marks on the letters and things like this, special characters. So that can be a big one in terms of, that solved a bunch of problems for me. Another kind of quick follow-up question here from Rick, who asked about scheduling a private live lesson with Laser Dave, and which is basically what I consider these to be for myself, if I'm very honest with you. What I would say, and Timothy answered it beautifully in the chat, is your best, if you're having any questions about Ruby, your best bet is always going to be to open a support ticket. If you head to the mytrotec.com, the mytrotec.ca, depending on if you're in Canada or in the United States, you may even end up talking to Dave, but I promise you that anybody in our TS department is going to be really super helpful and knowledgeable in terms of getting you the answer that you're looking for.
Yeah, and if it's highly complex, they will escalate it to me. But unfortunately, I could get overwhelmed very quickly as one man. So I also have other duties. So in those advanced cases, the TS guys will tap me, and sometimes I will do a phone call directly if it is necessary, especially in the complex ones. But most of the guys out there have as much or more knowledge in certain areas, especially on the technical side, than I do.
Yes. And also there is a separate type of support ticket, because you mentioned about best practices for settings. There is a separate type of support ticket on the MyTrotec that is specifically for an application question. So if you're struggling with something that's application related as opposed to a technical support, something is not working correctly on your actual laser, you can actually kind of get into a different stream there to talk to some of our training people, or kind of a different aspect of the company that would be really centered around helping you with that kind of question too. So that can be kind of nice.
Yeah, and there's a good segue too. We now have the actual support ticket built right into Ruby. So you can hit the drop-down menu now, click on support ticket, and it's going to take you what you need. Is it a Ruby question? They will want your serial number. This way they know exactly what system and setup you have. But it allows you to just go in. You can even drop your design file in here that you're having troubles with. So it's built right into Ruby now. When you need it, when you need that technical support, just click support ticket right from the drop-down menu.
Perfect. Thank you, Dave.
You can even record the screen right here, which can record the steps that you're having problems, and then you can send that to your support ticket so they can see exactly what you're having problems with.
Wow, that's cool. That one I didn't even know. That's really cool. I love that. I have another one here. Trophy Factory was, does the new version of Ruby have a beep sound when the job finishes? I miss that feature so much.
Yeah,
that's a good one. I've heard tell of different things. And even Pandora mentions that, yes, it does. So it depends. If this is something that you really want to see and happens to have been taken out, I would definitely submit. Dave, can you show how to submit a feedback through? Awesome. If you have any suggestions for making Ruby
there's
better,
another one called Ideas.
Yes.
Yeah, I had one the other day that was a great one that says, okay, I have to, when I'm doing an update or losing a computer or updating Ruby, I want to save all. I have to go in and save my jobs, my profiles, my management and stuff like that. They're like, when I do an update, can there be a button that just saves everything into a folder so I have a backup automatically? And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. So and that's why I tell people, click on ideas. It's going to take you right to it. Put that idea on here. If it's a great idea and multiple people identify it, it's going to be put at the top of the line. And you'd be surprised how fast some of these get implemented into the next or future versions.
We've seen it happen. Question for you, material handling question. Any best practice for aligning longer material when using the pass-through, i.e. if you're doing like your growth chart or a longer logo? That's a tricky one because we don't often get the opportunity to use the pass-through, at least for me. How about yourself, Dave? Are you a seasoned pass-through veteran or?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. In my 30,000 plus hours of running the lasers, I don't think there's anything I haven't tried. But yeah, pass through when it comes to alignment is tricky. In that case, there's a couple different tricks that I'm going to use, and it depends on whether you're cutting on the material or engraving, and whether or not you have some features. So, I mean, if you're cutting the material, and you have the ability to actually have marks on it, you can use camera registration and it will actually find those camera registrations and you can use that aspect of it. Most don't have that. So it's going to come down to literally placing some type of reference mark on that, usually a pencil mark or a piece of tape with a crosshair on it. And then, but you're going to need to place that onto your product first, and then measure it out. And I'll put a crosshair on it. And then what I will do is then, as I'm sequencing my product through, I'm going to use my red dot pointer to put on that crosshair. And then I'm going to snap my graphic to that red pointer, which is going to give me that alignment. And it's going to give you plus or minus maybe 10,000ths of an inch accuracy. And if you're engraving, you're most likely not going to see it. And you're not going to be able to see like a continuous photograph engraved as you pass through. There's just no way that's going to happen. There's just no way to align that up. But for engraving graphics and logos and stuff like that, 10,000ths of an inch, I've been able to maintain is well beyond anything you're going to be able to see. But make sure you measure it out properly, put a couple reference points on there, use your red dot pointer to find that as you move your product, using your left ruler to kind of identify that one axis. And then this way, when you get to the other one, snap your graphic to the red pointer. Because when you have the red pointer, it shows on the screen here. So when you move that to it, you can very quickly take your design and it just snaps to the graphic. And so when I want to snap it to it, I can just snap that to the graphic or to the center of that graphic. And so it's a quick and easy way to reference it. And this is it's a live view of your red pointer that wherever it's located on your on your laser machine.
Yeah. Would this be another option too, where you might want to use, and I'm trying to think of what the exact name for them is, but the sort of pins that you can place on your working area, if it's something that you're doing repeatedly, where you're kind of aligning it against a particular spot.
Yeah, pin alignment is nice, but I mean, if you've got a long product, it's not something you can really use, unfortunately. If you're kind of sequencing it, like I had a guy that was doing a surfboard, and the surfboard is kind of elongated and weird in shape. There's no real right corners, but he wanted to be able to place it and then move it down and then do one in the center and then one on the end. And so what I told him to do is just take and measure down the center line, put 3 dots basically with pencil mark or a simple little removable like marker mark or something like that, smaller the better. And then he would do the engraving on the first part, and then he would move it down and then take the red pointer to that center point and then snap his graphic to that, refocus it because it changed in focus, and then hit start and then move it down on the other end going through that cutting grid. And that was a perfect solution for him. It could be done within seconds, and it kept that alignment perfectly centered down that center line of the surfboard.
That's really smart. Yeah, or even as you said before, even a small piece of tape just for getting that original alignment, and then you can just peel off the tape once you've got it aligned.
Once you got it, peel the tape off and then move it. But I would even put a pencil mark on the tape for better accuracy. But then use measurement tools and even a tape measure to kind of find that center point and then mark it. And this way you'll know where it's placed. This way you know the center point of it. It works well.
Definitely. And I thought you made a good point there that I just want to circle back around to, because it hadn't originally occurred to me, but it's a really smart one, is make sure surfboard's a perfect example where obviously there's a natural like bow to it as it goes through. Make sure you're refocusing. Anytime you're moving that object down, you don't want to get 3 engravings in and then forget to refocus and find out that like, oh no. So
Yeah, click your
just
sonar, because things, if it's changing in height and size, then your focus could change too, and you don't want to waste, especially companies that do these wooden surfboards, those old style ones. There's a lot of time that's already gone into it. Once it's in the laser stage, it's usually the last point. And I hate to have all that lost, or have to go back and resand it down and start over
yeah.
and re-clear code it. It's a lot of wasted time if you don't do it right.
Definitely. And one, I think you mentioned the other kind of big use for it that I've seen, just circling back around to one you mentioned before, is sporting goods. Things like baseball bats, hockey sticks, stuff that is not necessarily doing a long consecutive engraving, but something that is just because by nature of its size, it becomes a bit, difficult to deal with.
Hockey stick, a good example of that.
Yeah.
Especially in Canada. You guys like your hockey, so I mean,
listen,
you want to engrave on all sides, on all points.
Yes, sir. Question here from Brian. I updated my Ruby program and it disappeared on my computer. Help. That is a new one on me. What I would say is it may be possible that your desktop shortcut is gone, but hopefully the actual Ruby program itself shouldn't be gone. If you're using a run on Ruby machine, and I thought you made an interesting point, Dave, earlier, to remember always that when you're interfacing with a run on Ruby machine, you're interfacing with a computer that's actually on the laser itself. It's not your computer. So if you're updating Ruby, you may need to re-add desktop shortcuts and things like that. But I'm hoping that a quick Windows S search through your Windows directory you should be able to find it again.
Yeah, and it could just be like you say, if you are run on Ruby machine, again, Ruby is not stored on your computer. You just missed the link. So the little link at the top to go into it, and you can actually, or go onto the Ruby machine and it'll give you QR codes. But under your user management, it's going to show you the different the actual setup. So if I want to remote access to this computer here, I can click this and it's going to give me the copy links to basically give me remote access to this Ruby laser machine. And so in essence, it's kind of like your web page. That may be the only link you lost. Now, if you don't have a run on Ruby laser machine and it's gone away and you updated it, it's probably just like Don said, it could very well be your just your short button key. So just do a search for it. Worst case, something didn't install properly, go to ruby.troteclaser.com and download it again, and give it a shot again. Worst case, contact our support guys. They can log into your system and help sort it out for you.
You got it exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth. That does it for most of the questions. We had another quick one here from Timothy that I'll address really, really quickly. Is for when it comes to the pass-through, does Trotec have a conveyor belt add-on? Unfortunately, we do not. It was something that we considered. Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Can you explain it a little better than I can?
We have a automation feature. So an automation feature for PLC devices, which are basically an automation code to input-output. So we have a device that would then allow you to put a conveyor system through your laser machine. And then we have communication cables that can plug into that automation or robotics or anything like that says, okay, sequence the conveyor belt. Okay, the conveyor belt stopped and it sends a signal back to the laser. It says, okay, run the next job. It runs the next job. The laser then sends a signal back to the conveyor belt that says, okay, sequence again, start, stop, back and forth. And so that's built into Ruby with our automation features. You do need a little card that allows for the automation to plug into, but for that aspect. And so when those folks that want to hook conveyors or robotics or any type of automation to our system, we have the ability to talk to those devices.
Yeah. And then perhaps as a final question here, but it's from Paulcraft, and I really, really like this question. Can you point us onto how to upgrade to 2.11? Things to back up or things to restore that you would suggest?
Oh, great question. Yes, and several different things that I would recommend if you're upgrading and you're not sure. Usually when it comes to an upgrade, it's simple. You're going to see it right up in the corner. It's going to give you a little green box that says, hey, there's an update. Click the button, does everything for you. You don't have to do anything. You can go to the Ruby website, and it's also going to give you the full download. But if it's a run on a Ruby machine, you wouldn't need to do that. It's already on your system. So the upgrade comes automatically. It's pushed directly to your system. If you don't want to do it yet, just don't click that button. It's just going to stay there for you. It's the script, a little icon up in the right-hand corner here. Onboard your touch screen, it's also going to give you the same type of a update button. If it is a run on Ruby machine, you can click it directly from there. So you can do it either from your computer remote interface, or you can do it from the touch screen on the run on Ruby machines. So, but the other good question there is, there are several things that I would suggest backing up just in case. It's highly unlikely we've had any issues with that, but with computers and variations from folks to, for everybody, there are things that I would recommend backing up. And that is, back up all your design files. You can back up your user profiles. So if I've got, if I'm into my actual users and I want to back them up, I can now export all my users. So say I'm a school and I have 400 users and they're a subcategory into group. I don't want to go in and design and reset up all those users again. So you can export those right here. You can also export and save all your custom material parameters. So say you've got all your own favorite materials and you've made all your own and modified them or made adjustments to them to your liking, to your material, you can back those up as well. So I can export, I can select the ones I want and basically click them all. And then I can export basically all the selected object. And when you click that, it's just going to go into your downloads folder. The last one too is your materials. So, or your designs. So if I wanted to export all my designs, I can select all the designs. I can then click on import or export, or you can save these all your designs. So you can hit export right here and do the same thing. And lastly, your jobs. The jobs are separated from your designs. Basically, it's the same thing, but the jobs already have a profile set up. They're already set up for the material parameters. And so again, you can select one or all of them and hit export and export them. And then when you need to import them back in, you click this button for the import button. And then you select that same file and drop it in. I do suggest doing all this from time to time, because you never know if your computer is going to go down or if you're going to have a problem. This way you're not losing out on potential years of work. And that is something I do suggest. I wanted to talk to our software guys for Ruby, is making one button that export all those separate entities as one bundle package, or an auto backup on it every, 3 months or something like that. It would be a handy feature just in case something goes down, hard drive goes down. You never know. It's good to have them backed up.
Definitely. Dear software. I do think you make a really good point there. And I'm so glad you mentioned Defaultcraft, because it's something that before you update, as Dave said, to my knowledge, we haven't had any big issues with that, but it's always a good idea. I mean, as you said, maybe have a power outage right in the middle of updating. You just don't, for 3 or 4 quick clicks, it's best just to not even take the risk. I mean, you have something, I think it said like 216 designs or something on there. I mean, all of that work for that to disappear would be a shame, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned profiles too. You're able to export the profiles as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't think so.
Because you set up the profiles, obviously you know the information that goes into there, but just as adding it to my email here, dear software, no problem.
Yeah, that is a good question. Yeah, being able to set up, and because that would be a custom kind of preset on there. I don't believe.
There we go. If you select them.
Yeah, you can select the profiles and then export them. Yeah, so if you have a profile and you spend all that time set it up, yes, our guys were ahead of me on that one. That's awesome. So if you have them all set up, you don't want to go through and reset all that up. That's like you said, I would love a button that just exported all those components as one bundle package. They can be separated, put it in a zip folder. This way you don't have to kind of go around and, I forgot to do profiles. I forgot to do my users,
exactly.
Things like that. And I understand some people wouldn't need one or the other. If you don't need it, fine. But for those folks that forget one of those features, and I may even be forgetting something that could be backed up. And so it would be good to have them all bundled together. But for now, you do have to kind of select them independently, depending on especially what's more important to you.
Yeah. And then I'll close it out with this question from Kurt, and it's already been answered by a couple of people in the chat. So thank you guys again. But when the files are exported, where are they being saved at? It should just be in the default downloads folder that you have set for the particular browser that you're in. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so if I were to say my users, and let's do this one because it's simple, and I hit export, it just immediately goes into a download. And so I can then click in my folder where my download folder is, and I now have that linked up. And so throw that in on a flash drive or your backup drive or something like that. So it's shared. Ideally, I would store it off of that computer. This way, in case if it's your computer that goes down, put it on an external drive, a flash drive, or throw it in your Dropbox or Google Drive, which are stored offsite in the cloud. So this way, you have access to them anywhere.
Perfect. Well, listen, we're just passing an hour here, and Dave is an incredibly busy guy, as I think you all know. So I don't want to keep him too long. I want to say thanks very much again to him for joining us for this and giving us the benefit of all of his 30,000 plus hours. And I promise you that that's a heavy plus. If you guys have any follow-up questions or you're watching this on YouTube, again, we're going to try and run these monthly. So I would definitely check and see if there's an upcoming stream, because we'll obviously love to have you guys at those upcoming stream and toss any questions you have in the chat. But if you throw one in the YouTube comments, we'll also try and grab those if we can. We're not quite as quick to get around on those ones, but we'll certainly do our best if you have anything that occurs to you, an hour or a week from now. Kind of any final thoughts on 2.11 or on Ruby or any of that stuff, Dave? Any last points you'd like to leave them with?
Yeah, I mean, 2.11 definitely has bridged the gap, like I said, from job control. I don't know any features that are really not better. And the user ability is just so much better. For those folks out there that have been hesitating, I think now is the time. Make the switch. Understand that you can continue to use job control in combination with the Ruby software. So as you're learning these new features and jumping back and forth, it's not cold turkey. Go ahead and do it. Make the change. It's going to make you more efficient, more productive, and a better engraver using your laser system. I know there's a lot there. You don't have to use all of it, but it really is going to keep progressing. More features are going to come, and don't be left in the dust. Update the software. Go to this next step, and I can promise you it's going to benefit you in your productivity and quality.
I couldn't have said it better. And I think to bring it all the way back around to the first thing you showed us, Dave, they have done such a great job of bulking out those help features that I think this is also a great time for that aspect, because you've got those added help features that are going to be there for you. I mean, exactly.
Yeah, the online handbook is a now one too, right here. You can actually download and go through the handbook, and for every little feature, it gives you an explanation of exactly what each one of the features are. This isn't brand new, so take advantage of that. Again, everything is controllable right from this little booklet right here. So this is your manual, and when you click on that, you can see the first steps, how to get started, all the latest release notes. There's still job control data here too, if you want to go back and look at the difference between the two. Graphics software, but your online handbook. You can also download your software from in here. Of course, it's hard to click the button in the software to download the software, so you have to come in manually. So, but yeah, all that is in here, and the online helping capability has dramatically improved for you folks out there, especially the ones that were hesitating, wanting some of that content and data out there to make that adjustment. So the help is there when needed.
Definitely. Well, listen, another huge thank you to Laser Dave, as always, for all of his help and all of his great information. A huge thank you to everybody who's watched in chat and to everybody who submitted questions, to Timothy, Fallcraft, Colin, all of you guys. We really appreciate your being here and joining us. We have another stream coming up next week that is specifically about our brand new Speedy 100 Cross machine that I hope you'll join us for. That's going to be a very fun and exciting stream. That's happening also at noon. It's going to be on Thursday, the 31st of July. So I hope you'll join us for that one. That's going to be a very, very cool stream, particularly if you haven't heard about the 100 Cross. It's the newest machine from Trotec, and it's something we're pretty excited to show you guys. And in the meantime, we'll definitely be announcing our next Ruby stream coming up here pretty shortly. But I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, a rest of your week. Enjoy using your lasers, and we'll talk to you really soon. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.